Welcome to Final Approach with Chris Gregory. I am a philomath who is somebody who loves to learn things. One of the things that I've learned is that everyone has a tale to tell and a lesson to teach. From pilots to farriers to musicians to authors and creators, I'm going to explore my interests while introducing you to some amazing people. Pre-flight is complete and we have clearance, so let's kick the tires and start the fires. Don Davis is an Army veteran, former Calvary soldier, and current stablemaster for the horse detachment of the 1st Calvary in Fort Cavazos, better known as Fort Hood, Texas. He and I were introduced by my great friend Scott Robison while I was down there doing a clinic for Camp Cowboy. That introduction led to my having the honor of helping the last farrier soldiers in the U.S. Army. Don has a great story to tell, and you're going to have a good time learning about the man that runs the last horse detachment in the U.S. Army that uses soldiers to keep the horses shod. We are cleared for takeoff. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here with Mr. Don Davis. He is the stable master. Is that the right title?
That's correct.
The stable master for the soldiers in, I hate saying Fort Cavazos.
So does everyone else.
What once was mighty Fort Hood is now called Fort Cavazos. And here we have a cavalry unit still riding horses.
Mm-hmm. That's correct. So our mission is to preserve and maintain the standards of drill and traditions of the cavalry from the late 1800s.
Yeah.
Just a reminder of where it all started.
How fantastic. So where are you from?
I'm originally from Mississippi. My childhood has been divided up by several places, but...
Were you a military child?
No, not at all. Well, I was, but my father was out of the Air Force by the time I was born.
So how did your childhood get divided up?
Well, I was born in Little Rock, Arkansas, and somewhere between that and the time I was about 2 years old, I was primarily raised in Gulfport, Mississippi, down on the coast. So I stayed there until I was about 13. My mother and father divorced when I was too young to remember, and had different stepfathers and things like that all around until my mother finally met who she's with now, who happened to be a roofer when I was about 13 or 14 years old. And then from there, we had moved all over the country.
Roofing.
Yes.
Okay. Now, I've known you for about 5 years, so I've heard some of these stories. Tell us what roofing was like back in what would that be, 1980?
It would be somewhere around...
What year were you born?
The late 80s. I was born in 74.
74. Okay, so I was a 68 model.
Okay.
We did go to different schools together. I just graduated earlier.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So what was roofing like before they had nail guns?
It was a highly desired skill, and it was based on production. So not many roofers that were good at their job worked by the hour. It was based on how many shingles you could lay in a day, and all the rest of the work was just kind of part of the job. You know, you didn't necessarily get paid for doing the other things.
As in taking off the old shingles?
Yeah, tearing shingles off. Now, you would bid a job based on tear off, but in the end, the measure was who put the finished shingle on at the end and who laid what amount of new material.
And you said you guys would go up north because that was steep roofs?
Oh, yeah. So kind of the way you bid a job is based on the difficulty level, and the steeper the roof was, the more it paid. So we'd spend several summers in Michigan or something like that, or in Flint, Michigan, just south of Detroit, I think it is.
How was the water back then?
Well, we didn't know it was bad at the time, but I'm sure we were all drinking it.
Your teenage years were spent roofing, but you did that well past that, right?
Yeah. So I joined the Army when I was about 23 years old. So
a little bit of a late start.
Yeah, because from the time I was 13 or 14 years old, I started basically making a man's wage, and school kind of became a side note. And with us moving all over the place, my parents weren't pushing school at all either. And also, I was extra labor.
Of course.
Benefited the household in that way rather than going to school.
Well, that's pretty neat. Did you have brothers and sisters?
No.
No, you're a single child?
Yes, single child.
You don't seem nearly as entitled as I would expect from a single child. Did you go to college at all, or did you just roof for those 5 years between high school and Army?
I just roofed. I didn't even really go to high school.
Oh, okay.
So from the time I was in junior high, when I left school, I never went back to school. I made the effort a few times, but the next thing you know, you're 17 years old and they've got you in the 8th or 9th grade and you just don't fit in, you know? I mean, I was buying beer when I was thinking about going back to high school.
Okay. What made you join the Army?
At the time, I had a roofing company.
Like it was your deal, not your stepdad's.
Yes, I had 3 trucks and had 3 crews working for me. Grown men. I was in my early 20s, and I had basically got to the point where I didn't have to get on roofs anymore, other than to place the bid.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, and I was living in Northeast Mississippi, and we just had kind of a rainy spell, and life wasn't going great for them because we didn't have any work, but I had managed to pocket enough money that I was okay. It didn't bother me, and I've got grown men supporting children coming to me asking me for draws, and basically I was starting to bear the pressure of them raising their families, and I don't know why I even cared. I couldn't tell you that, but I just knew that I didn't like the way I felt about that lifestyle. So I sold everything and I joined the Army.
I'll be dang. So what was your first job in the Army?
I spent 21 years as an 11 Bravo.
So 21 years as a grunt.
Yeah, I was an infantryman.
I did not know that, Don.
Yep.
But you were also a cavalry soldier.
So the way this works is you volunteer to do this job. So
By this job, you're not talking stablemaster. You're talking cavalry soldier.
just a soldier in this horse cavalry detachment.
Okay.
So you volunteer to take that on as a side job. So kind of a special duty. So you can get away from your primary MOS to go do special duty jobs, but it's usually limited by time. And I guess I'd been through that training cycle of an infantryman so many times. I was just looking to do something else. It didn't matter where you were. The training cycle was the same. Every 6 months, it starts all over again.
And were you a horseman? Did you have horse experience as a child?
No, I'd never touched a horse from the time I was a child.
And so your first horse experience was as a cavalryman.
Yes.
You know what? For some reason, you just seem so cowboy through and through. I just thought you'd grown up with it.
No.
That's very interesting.
I've been around all kinds of people and fit in with all kinds of crowds. I mean, I've basically lived as a chameleon my whole life. So, but I think when I found this, I couldn't get away from it. Military horsemanship in particular, not just horsemanship, but military horsemanship. The brand was something that I really enjoyed because there was a process, a desired outcome. You saw the desired outcome if you did it correctly.
That is very interesting. Let me get a little math going. So 25 years old, joined the military, 21 years, so you get to retire at 46. When did you go from being just infantry to being a cavalryman? How many years were you just a 11 Bravo grunt before you got to do this job?
I think I got here in late 2001. Yeah, so it wasn't too long after the World Trade Center incident happened that I was PCSing from Korea to get here. So early 2002 is really when I'd begun doing this.
Nice. Did you get deployed as an infantryman?
I did.
How many tours did you serve, sir?
Well, I did one in Iraq. In 1999, I went to Bosnia-Herzegovina, though, as an 11 Bravo also. But
did you see action in Bosnia?
Well, action there was a little different. It was really like roughing people up and zip tying them and turning them into the local authorities and letting their police force, because it was more of a peacekeeping mission. So
okay,
really, we just facilitated and assisted the local authorities in the enforcement of their new regime or however you see it.
Okay. And then you went to Iraq as an infantryman after 9/11.
Yeah. So 2009 to 2010 was when I was there.
So this was even after you were a cavalry soldier.
Yeah. So I had been promoted beyond my experience. I had went from the rank of E5, which is buck sergeant, to the rank of E7, sergeant first class here.
So you were not a staff sergeant?
Yeah, I was.
Oh, okay.
But I had done it here. So I'd made those ranks. But I'd already performed duties as an E6 in the infantry world. But once I'd made sergeant first class, I'd never done that job. So I felt like I needed to go back because I'd been promoted beyond my experience.
Okay. So you like almost volunteered?
Oh, I did.
You did volunteer?
Yeah.
All right. And what was Iraq like, if you don't mind telling us?
It was like going to work in a hairdryer, kind of. It was hot. The hours were long. You didn't get a lot of sleep, but you were really so focused on the team and your work and the people around you that the strains of the work weren't as heavy as supporting the people around you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that kind of runs deep in you anyway.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're 25 years old. You have the world by the tail, and you sell it all because you're feeling the responsibility, right?
Yeah.
So did you do any cool schools in the military? Are you airborne, air assault, ranger?
Nope. I was an 11 Mike is what I was When I came in, it was called 11 Mike, so it's mechanized infantrymen. So yeah, while we asked for all the cool schools and everything, we didn't get them because we were heavy infantry.
Okay.
Halfway through my career, though, they combined the 11 Mike and 11 Bravo and called us all 11 Bravos.
So there is no more 11 Mikes, really?
No, they're gone.
Okay.
I was the last one in the Army. Just kidding.
Well, if you guys look at the picture, you'll see Mr. Davis's beard, and he does look like he might be the last of anything.
Yeah.
When did you get stationed in Fort Hood? Can we call it Fort Hood while we're...
Yeah, we can just call it Fort Hood because that's what I know it as. It was that for 20 plus years. So
that's what most people know it as. So
right.
When did you get stationed here?
So 1997. So I joined the Army on Halloween Day, 1996. My first assignment was here in 1997. I had my 24th birthday. I think we kind of got the math a little off. I had my 24th birthday in basic training.
Oh, okay. All right. And were you a married man yet?
No, I met my wife in the military while I was in the military.
Okay. Was she a soldier?
Nope.
No. All right.
She was a military child, though.
Oh, yeah. Was her dad a general?
No.
That makes a better story.
He was a first sergeant
when
he retired. He had already retired by the time I'd met her.
And so since 1997, you've been away for a year in Iraq. You've been away for some stuff in Bosnia.
Mm-hmm.
You've been away for Korea.
Mm-hmm.
And where else have you been?
That's it. That's really all. I mean, I've been on different trips with the horse unit here, but
sure,
that's it.
So now you have these soldiers, and to give you guys a little background, Mr. Davis, you took the stablemaster in 2018?
2017 should have been. Late 2017, the turn to 2018. Yes, sir.
All right. And so I did a clinic in the spring of 2018 for Scott Robison at Camp Cowboy, and that's where we met. And I got to come in here and start working with the soldiers, and we've had a very good relationship. You've sent several soldiers to the heartland. Now we're looking at a whole group of horses that are sound, which you didn't have back when I first met you. So that's been a pretty neat thing to see. What do you attribute having such a good group of horses? How have you done that?
Well, when I had first taken this job, I started to look at the horse herd in a different light. While I was a soldier here, so I'd spent a non-consecutive 8 years here. So kind of looked at the horses as green or trained and seasoned, and, that was kind of it. And the horseshoeing job was up to the farriers. But when I came here as the stable master, I started having to look at things on a whole herd type of health. So that when I got here, I didn't do it consciously. It was kind of something I just started kind of asking myself, okay, so we have a lot of lameness issues, a lot of health issues, and chronic things. And we've got horses we can't give bute to because they're so old and their digestive tracts are so sensitive. And kind of all of the things that I was seeing as a herd was due to age and use. So I just sat down and wanted to figure out what, if I put all the horses together in one and figured out an average age, what would the age of the herd be? And to my surprise, it turned out the average age of the herd here was 22 point some odd years. And at some point we had gotten to the average age being 24 years old. Well, of course,
wow.
I'm going to have a lot of issues because the average horse out here is geriatric,
Right.
So I started looking at, and step one was just get us some horses that were sound. They may not be great. I mean, they may be a 12-year-old horse. They may be beyond training for demonstrations, but we need horses that soldiers can ride so they learn how to ride still. And just started bringing the average age of the herd down. So now I'm at a point where I have a certain number of older horses that can teach new riders how to ride. I've got what I consider my starting lineup, my performance horses. So they're the teenagers, middle-aged type of horse, and they can carry the brunt of the workload while still having a sound mind and body and not putting the public at risk or the rider at risk or even themselves to be subjected to injury. Now, I also have what I consider my bench of horses, my young and up-and-comers. They're training, they're learning. Kind of how I balance the rider to horse is inverse. So I put the best riders on the least experienced horses, and I put the least experienced riders on the older horses that somebody's not going to ride the hair off of a geriatric horse now. So,
and you're the one that makes this call, right?
Yes.
Okay. And what's the average age of a horse now in 2023?
We're just over 11 years old now.
So less than half.
Yes.
By a stretch. That's amazing. And what happens to the old horses here when they're done?
They're adopted out very much exactly like the canines are adopted out from the military. So once they've reached an age that we don't want to put the physical stressors on them anymore, we notify the public. We use Facebook, and the horse is posted for 2 weeks up for adoption. There's an application process. So once someone is interested, they'll find a link on the Facebook post. They can click on that link, respond to that email address saying that they're interested, and I mail them an application. They fill out their application and send it back to me. And then there's a board that sits down and selects the most suited adopter. So it's myself, the veterinarian, the post veterinarian, the battalion XO, and the commander here, and then also the military trainer here.
Wow. These horses they're taken care of from the moment you lay hands on. Their life going forward is really something else, huh?
Yes, the care for their life. Once they come here, I try to put a vested interest in them until they are no longer alive.
And so you actually do site visits after you get a horse adopted out. Well, there's some horses that live in some really miserable lives. There's horses that I see that I'm very happy I didn't have to live that life, but this is a great place to be a horse.
Yeah.
The soldiers that want to be in the Calvary, you have a long list of people that would like to be here that aren't able to do that, right?
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
And so how do they get to be here?
Well, first of all, they have to volunteer to be assigned to the horse detachment. Once they do that, there's a packet and an application for them to fill out. Their brigade sergeant major has to sign off on it to release them from their brigade, because once they come work here, we don't need them working here and then being called back every week for something else that the unit needs.
Do they need to be stationed on Fort Hood to start with, or could
they do need to be stationed on Fort Hood?
Okay, they can't be somebody from Alaska who wants to work here.
They can be in any division. They just need to be stationed here on the post. Once they fill out that application and their sergeant major signs off on it, the application is brought here. We do a cavalry school every quarter, and they'll go through an interview process here. They'll sit down with the commander and the military trainer, the first sergeant. Sometimes I'll sit in on the interviews, and they just go through their packet. They have to meet a certain screening criteria. They can't have had any kind of UCMJ action, any sort of violations or anything like that on their record, nothing negative. So that's all we ask for, is just somebody with a clean slate, and they're here. They're not here for any other reason other than to learn what we do. And then once they make it through the interviews, then they go through a physical fitness test. They're required to score a certain score on the physical fitness test. They take a physical agility test that's only horse-oriented, jump on a horse bareback, hold our 1873 carbine for a certain amount of time, hold our saberette, present sabers for a certain amount of time, and then cab school begins. So once they've met all the prereqs, cab school begins so that's day 0. Cab school begins on day 1. And we start with cleaning and maintenance and basically how you keep yourself safe around here. And we begin with all the safety things. Once we've done that, we move on. And then every day is pre-planned about exactly what you need to learn on which day.
And so once the soldier gets here, and let's say he got here because he really wanted to be a farrier, is that from day 1 till he gets to step in the farrier shop, how long does that take?
He'll have to at least first graduate from cab school. Once he's done that, we'll need to get them to a certain level of riding. Preferably, we would want them to be a B group rider. That way they understand enough about the mechanics. And
so A group is the top group, B is the second group, C is the third group, right?
Yep.
Okay, right.
So we have beginner, intermediate, and then what we consider an expert rider would be an A group rider. Having an intermediate rider, they understand a little bit more about the stressors and the physical capabilities of a horse, how their shoeing has an effect on that. It helps them to put that together. We have had C group riders come here and be very good farriers and come along as they go along, but most of them will admit that being a B group rider helps them in understanding the movements of the horse, because we require them to execute certain movements with horses, complex lead changes, simple lead changes, posting in the correct diagonal, and all things like that.
Yeah, I certainly agree that a person who knows how their horses are used makes a better farrier. I would agree with that. Okay, so here's a question that, playing the devil's advocate, what do you say to somebody who says, why does a modern military need a cavalry?
That one is a challenged question. I have a lot of GOs, general officers, come out here, and their echoes to me, without them asking me why, the things they tell me is that it helps to remind us of where we came from, the foundations and the building of our military, understanding mounted warfare versus dismounted warfare, and that they're teaching the soldiers to become better rounded by just being here.
Okay.
How it directly applies to the modern warfare, I couldn't tell you. Me personally, I think that it's important for us to do the public relations part, touching with the local communities and providing support in their historical events and things like that. So that for me is where that is.
And your dance card is full.
Yes, all the time.
What do you guys do in the community with your horses?
We can do anything from yesterday and today presentations, which would be just sending 2 soldiers out to talk about what they do in the modern military and what their job is and kind of what their duties and responsibilities are here. We do parade entries where we send 11 riders and mounts in the wagon out, pulled by 2 mule team to support them in their community parades and all the things that they're putting together. And we also do a cavalry weapons demonstration where we actually show the capabilities of a small unit of horses. So we'll do drill and ceremony, which is basically a demonstration of how we would be marched into battle. Then we do the cavalry weapons demonstration part, which is how the weapons are used in battle in individual and team events. And then all the way through the progression of fighting through a battlefield, assaulting back across the objective, recovering the battlefield with the wagon. And then, we stand and talk to women, children, young men, people interested in the military. And
makes people want to stand up and salute, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So then you guys go to the Pasadena every year. What's that trip like? Is that your big trip? Would you consider that your big trip?
It's the farthest that we travel on a regular basis for sure. It's also the parade that probably has the highest viewership of anything we do. Even though the actual, actions on the objective are probably low impact because we just walk in a parade. But the muscle movement to get the horses, it's 3 days of travel to get to Pasadena. And then when we get there, we do a small thing called the Equest Fest where we do a demonstration for them.
That's what I watched them doing yesterday, right?
Yep. It's a showcase for all of the horse units, and they show what they actually do, because I don't think anybody has a horse unit that just walks in parades. You have to have something else that you do,
A cavalry that just walked in parades was not going to be very effective in 1870.
Right. So we'll do the Equest Fest. The viewership is a little smaller there, but it airs, 3 or 4 times a year on, I think RFD TV will show it an awful lot. And then we take a day off and we begin all the parade operations. So it's 5 days on the ground there, 3 days of travel to get there, and then 3 days of travel to get back. And of course, it's never over until we get back with all our healthy horses and healthy soldiers.
Have you had any big wrecks?
Oh, no. Actually, I think that's probably one of the big responsibilities of what I'm actually here for. But thank goodness we've done well in our travels. And one of the things that I'm supposed to do is to help them with problems like that. What to do, how to handle it, what our course of action would be. A lot of my responsibility is also knowing large animal recovery units all along the way, knowing which large animal vets are awake all along the route, at all hours of the afternoon. We don't travel much in the evening, but when we stop, I would also have to know where a veterinarian is and help them get to the assets that would help recover any issues.
Lots of logistics.
Yes.
Now, there are other cavalry units in the United States Army, and are they in Pasadena as well?
No. Fort Irwin has one. Fort Huachuca has one. Fort Riley has one. There's the Arlington Cemetery Caisson Platoon. But no, none of the Army units are stationed there. I think the Fort Irwin one is the closest, and they're actually going to ride with us this year in the Pasadena Tournament of Roses. Yep.
Oh, well, that's very cool. Is that the first time that they're coming up?
Yeah, that's the first time any of the other units will be in. Now, the Marines ride every year. They carry the colors for it. But as far as Army units, no.
Okay, so the Marines do have a mounted unit?
They do.
And where are they stationed?
Fort Irwin.
Oh, all right. Well, did I tell you I was born there?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, my dad was stationed in Fort Irwin during Vietnam. So I was born in Greenweed Army Hospital in Fort Irwin, California. I don't remember it at all, but which is right. I have a great memory. I just don't know why.
Yeah.
From what I understand, you are the last horse unit in the Army that has their own farriers.
Yes.
And so the other units, what do they do for shoeing?
They do a contract. They'll contract someone to come shoe their horses, and he'll show up every 6 weeks and take care of them.
So it's just like they're a customer then.
Mhm.
It's not a full-time position for a farrier.
No.
That's kind of new. That's only happened in the last decade or so. Is that right? Or
It's always been contracted for them. I think Fort Riley is probably the closest to doing it the way we do it, but they even still have a contractor, if I'm not mistaken.
okay, I guess I had it in my mind that Fort Carson and Fort Riley and you all had their own in-house farriers like a few years ago. Is that not right?
Fort Carson is closed down now.
Fort Carson completely?
Yeah, they're gone. They've shut the doors. The horse unit.
They disbanded that detachment.
They did.
Oh, I'll be dang. Okay. Fort Riley, how many soldiers serve on that detachment?
I think they're the closest to being. They're slightly less. I think they may have around 30 horses and probably 25 or 28 soldiers. We have 33, and I think we have 35 or 36 soldiers right now. We're authorized 40 soldiers and 44 horses and 6 mules. We've never needed nor met our authorization for animals.
Okay. And what do you think going forward? Do you think that you're going to be able to keep your farriers, or do you think it will change?
As long as we can prove to the Army that we're taking care of the horses as good as they can possibly be taken care of, our operation should continue the same.
So what's the advantage of having your own farriers?
I can get feet fixed anywhere, anytime, no matter what. And I think for us, we're pretty unique. The horseshoer being with the unit and being an organic part of the daily operations. I mean, he shoes his own horse. Every horse he's shod, he watches throughout the entire cycle. He can see and identify issues or lack or inefficiencies to his own shoeing because he watches it every single day. He's aware, without me having to say it, of special needs or considerations. Say, if a horse has some sort of a therapeutic need and he goes on the road and we have that horse on the roster, his job also is to identify and recognize that horse has some sort of a need or therapeutic consideration when we're on the road when there's a repair, So also it's really simple. If I send the guys out to the Kaleem parade and they're going to go ride and they sprung a shoe, well, the farriers carry the stuff in their saddlebags to be able to fix that issue. So rather than pull the horse out and pull the shoe off and bring him back to the barn, the farrier fixes it right there on the side of the road. The horse goes back to work and we don't have to push him or anything like that.
And if you had a civilian contract and you're in Pasadena and your farrier's in Killeen, Texas, that's a problem, huh?
Right. So then I have to pay another farrier to fix the horse while we're on the road because I'm not going to have that horse do any work without fixing his feet. So now I don't know the farrier that I'm renting, say.
Yeah, and that's a huge point.
That's right.
Not all farriers are created equal. If you're a horse owner out there, you know exactly what we're talking about. A person happens to do it, and you might get lucky. You might get one of the best farriers that ever lived, but you might not.
Yep.
All right. What else would you like to tell us about this unit? Is there anything that I've missed asking you that you would like to let the world know about the horse detachment or the military? So let's get personal. How long have you been married?
I've been married, I think it's 23 years now.
23 years. And a daughter about to become a vet.
Yes. So she's finishing up the master's program at Texas A&M University. And we just found out today that she's got an interview now to go to Texas Tech and finish up the doctorate, which would be great.
How incredible.
I'm happy for her. Yep. She's a persistent young lady.
Yeah. And your son is actually military.
Yes, he is a 15 Tango now. That's a Black Hawk crew chief and mechanic. He's stationed at Fort Lewis, Washington.
Did you encourage him to become a soldier, or how did that happen?
I did not. The only thing I said to my son whenever he started is right at the beginning of his senior year in high school. And, I started asking him, say, hey, so what kind of colleges, or what are you thinking about doing? We've talked about it a lot. We spent a lot of time in a deer stand, me and my son and I. And he was like, well, I don't know yet. And he was really hem-haw about it. And I just kind of talked to him and said, hey, at the end of your senior year, you've got to tell me what your plan is, or we've got to start paying rent at the house. And kind of said it tongue in cheek, but there was some seriousness to it too.
What kind of rent would you be charging your child?
I don't know. It'd probably start with grass mowing, but I wouldn't be too harsh on him, but I would definitely be encouraging him to figure out what he's going to do to be a productive, responsible American. But it was kind of tongue in cheek, but there was some seriousness to it too. That like, hey, at the end of your senior year, I need to know what your plan is. And then we started getting to the end of his senior year, and he just kind of started talking to me and saying that, I don't know if I want to go to college. And I said, oh, okay, well, I can understand that. Well, what do you think you're going to do? What is it that you want to do? And he really just didn't know. And, I said, well, the Army's always hiring, and just kind of joked about it. But he started to take it seriously. And probably the last month of school, he started inquiring on his own about the Marines, and he wanted to go be a Marine. So we had another conversation, just, hey, what do you think you're going to do? He's like, well, I think I'm going to join the military. He said, because he was in an early college high school. So he was doing high school and college at the same time. So he does still have an associate's degree, but I think it may have been an overload for school because he was just kind of sick of it. So I said, okay, well, here's the deal. If you're going to join the military, like, I know a lot about the military. I spent a little bit of time around it. I said, all I'm going to ask of you is that you talk to all of the recruiters. And he said, okay. I said, I'll take you up there, and I don't want to influence you on anything. I said, if that's what you want to do, I said, I just want to be there because they can rope you into a contract pretty quick.
Are you talking about the recruiters?
Yes.
This is breaking news, ladies and gentlemen.
So he said, okay, no problem. So the first thing we did was we went to the Marine recruiter. I said, who do you want to talk to first? He said, well, let's go to the Marines. He said, I'm pretty sure I'm going to do that. I said, okay, fine. And then I took him up there. I let the recruiter know, like, hey, I'm not here to tell him what to do or anything like that. I just want to make sure that if he's going to put his name on anything, I'm standing there and he understands what he's putting his name on. And they said, okay, sure, no problem. So the experience with the Marine recruiter was, hey, so you want to do this? And, a lot of rah, 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 kind of what I expected. And he was like, yeah. And then I had the folder that had his birth certificate and his social security card and all that stuff. I kept it with me because I didn't want to be in the room while he was talking to the recruiter. Well, they come out and he's like, yeah, hey, I need to run a copy of this and this and this. And I said, for what? And I guess there was a promissory contract that said that no matter what his decision was, that when he went to MEPS, the Marines were going to take him. So say he signed, if he would have signed this paper with these copies on it, he could have walked out of the room and talked to any recruiter he wanted. But the moment he showed up to MEPS, they were going to enlist him into the Marine Corps.
Oh my.
And I looked at the gunny and I said, look, man, I said, that's not what we're here for. I said, he'll be back when it's time to sign that. So you've talked to him about what his options are and all that. And he was like, okay. So then we went to the other recruiters, and the Air Force wasn't there. They were off. I think he got come back tomorrow from the Navy, and then the Army recruiter, she talked to him. And I told her the same thing, like, hey, I'm not here to tell him what to do, what MOS or anything like that. And she sat him down and told him all the things that the Army had to offer. And that I think the big seller for him was that he got to pick his job as long as he could score high enough on the ASVAB. And there was a pretty big chunk of money involved in that too. Yeah. Well, he still was undecided. We went home that night, and at about 8:30 or 9 o'clock at night, he got a text from the Marine recruiter, and the Marine recruiter tried to play him against myself. He was like, oh no. Yeah. So he started off the text with something that said to the effect of, I know your dad's trying to tell you to join the Army, but you need to make decisions for yourself. And it kind of pissed my son off.
As it should.
He got mad that the recruiter was trying to play him against his father, not knowing what kind of relationship him and I have. He said, well, I'm just going to join the Army. He said, I think I want to do this helicopter mechanic thing. And I said, okay, it's all up to you. I said, I'm here for you, man. Whatever you want. And he scored high enough on the ASVAB that next week and was gone a month later.
I'll be dang. Well, that's a cool story. And so those of you that are youngsters thinking about the military, there's a lot of wisdom in what was just passed out right there, in case you're wondering. And so if you hadn't been a soldier, would you have stayed a roofer?
I don't know. I probably would have.
You told me the roofing industry changed a lot during your time. Yeah. What happened?
Well, the nail gun. Okay. The nail gun changed it. So back when I was a roofer, a man that could sit down and turn nails and drive them, by setting the nail and driving it in a single stroke and, driving 4 nails in a shingle in a matter of, 2.5 seconds. and then lay the next shingle over the top and repeat that process. It was hard to find. A roofer that could lay 12 to 18 square a day. One square is a 10 foot by 10 foot section
100
roof.
square feet.
Yep. It's 100 square feet. A man that could sit down and lay 12, 15, 16, 18 square of shingles on a roof, that was hard to find. And they paid us good money to do it. Like I said, I was 14 years old and I was making a man's wage. I was making enough money to support a family of 3. And that was a lot of money to me,
And thank God you didn't have that at 14.
Yeah. So all I got to do was buy whatever vehicle I wanted and, blow my money as I saw fit. The nail gun was invented. So now all you have to do is point and shoot. So all you have to do now is pop a few extra lines, because now you don't have to have the eye. You've got the time to pop extra lines to make the roof nice and straight. Then they changed the shingle. The shingle used to be a 3-tab shingle, and there was, 2 directions. You had to keep 2 different lines straight on, and now it's a dimensional shingle. So everything got really simplified. And all you have to be able to do now is understand the water runs this way. You have to stagger all your shingles, throw them down, and you just bang the nail gun, 4 spots on the shingle. It's set. It's done.
So how many square is a roofer doing with a nail gun in a day?
In a day now, I think you're considered slow if you can't do 30 square.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a serious difference.
And the pay, so since the skill is required is a lot less, the pay has gone down. And I think it's all going into the contractor's pockets now.
Well, okay, of course. Huh. Well, that's interesting. If you hadn't been a roofer, did you have any other life plans or goals? Or
I've had a few other jobs. I've been I think they called me a sheet metal technician. We built ductwork for industrial type buildings. My side job, whenever I had that roofing company, was I was also a bingo caller. So,
yeah.
I could work for.
You do have a good voice.
I could. Got a voice for radio, or face for radio, right?
Yeah.
But I could call bingo for 3 to 5 hours a night and make $175 to $200. And,
back then,
it was good.
So I was shoeing horses for $23 a horse in 1987.
Yeah.
I thought I was getting rich, but $175 to call bingo.
Oh, yeah.
Man, I never knew about that.
I think they paid us $50 a night, and then it was plus tips. So all you had to do was smile at the ladies sitting down there with bingo daubers, and they'd tip you every time they won,
And does your wife work?
She does not.
And she's become your hunting partner, I understand.
Yeah. So the kids have moved out, and now I wish I would have known she was ever interested in it to begin with. So I love the outdoors. Whatever is in season is what I'm out in the woods chasing.
And you guys eat more game than anything else, right?
That's all we've eaten for at least 15 years now. It may be longer.
Wow.
We have been eating wild game, just basically filling our Texas tags for the super combo. And that's what goes in the freezer. Yeah. The kids moved out and I took her on a spring turkey hunt, and we killed a turkey, and she's been hooked ever since. I can't keep her out of the woods now. So now when I would normally jump in my hunting truck and go out in the woods and maybe go scout for deer or something like that, she's asking me where we're going. So our time is out in the wildlife now.
That is so cool. There's a lot of husbands that are jealous of that. That's pretty neat.
Yep.
Well, Dawn, you've been a gracious guest. And what about a dad joke? You got a dad joke?
Yeah, there's a few of them. It takes me back to this time when I was a young man. I had this addiction. I was really addicted to soap, but now I'm all clean. And then it also led to me singing in the shower a lot, but then you get soap in your mouth and that becomes a soap opera.
Oh,
So-
nice. Nice. I had some Dove chocolate the other day.
Yeah.
I tell you what, it tastes way better than their soap. All right. Well, sir, you've been a gracious host. Every time I come down here, you guys just treat me amazingly. You guys made me an honorary cavalryman and give me a coin and all of that. It's just been an amazing relationship for me, and I'm so grateful to be a part of it. And I thank you so much for your time.
Yeah. Hey, I appreciate it. Thank you, Chris, for everything you've done for us.
Good job. Camp Cowboy. What happens when a generous and experienced man sees a problem? Well, at Robison Ranch outside of Copperas Cove, Texas, Camp Cowboy is what happens. Horseman and Green Beret veteran Scott Robison had seen and helped correct many bad things around our globe. But when he retired from the U.S. Army, he saw another need in his own backyard. Being close to Fort Hood, also known as Fort Cavazos, a lot of veterans were suffering for the job that they did to keep America grand and free. Scott knew that working with horses could fill a void and heal a troubled soul, and so he started Camp Cowboy, a free class for veterans to learn about what it means to work with and care for a horse as they take on whatever is theirs to deal with. Camp Cowboy is my favorite charity, and I'm proud for whatever small part I'm ever able to play. Check them out at www.campcowboy.org or give them a call at 253-370-4987. Tell Scott and Lane hi for me.